Good morning. Welcome to Fast Forward Diversity and Inclusion. My name is Isa Buencamino and my co-host is Hannah Wilson. Today's webcast is the 11th in our pilot series of 12 interviews. Second to the last. Anyway, Fast Forward Diversity and Inclusion is a webcast series where we invite leading advocates who have been working on this agenda for years. We invite a diversity of guests representing the protected characteristics, people from all walks of life from the UK and other countries. We believe that stretching our D&I orientation to a more global perspective enhances our ability to empathize and understand the lived experiences of others, to do something personally about it in a meaningful way.
So on today's show, we are delighted to be joined by Andrew Moffat. Andrew Moffat is a British teacher who has been given an MBE for the fantastic work he has done on driving the diversity, equity, inclusion agenda in the school system in the UK. He was one of the senior leaders at Parkfield Community School in Birmingham, which I know a lot of you will recognise the name of from the media storm last year. And he's now the professional development lead in the Excelsior Trust, where Parkfield sits. He is the author of a number of books and educational resources, and he is the founder of a programme called No Outsiders. And if you don't know what No Outsiders is, please go and Google it. It's also now available as a link on the Diverse Educators website. It's ultimately an approach about how to teach primary school aged children about diversity and tolerance, and he was nominated for the Global Teacher Prize as a result of his work. So Andrew, it's great to have you here. We always have the same first question. How did you become a champion for diversity, equity, inclusion? Where did it all begin?
Right, hello everyone. Thank you for having me. It's really nice to be here on this Sunday morning. So why am I doing this? Well, it's because I love teaching, basically. I'm a teacher, been teaching since 1995. And I remember a teacher that really inspired me in my second school. She was called Sally. She was a Senko. She used to talk about the craft of teaching, and that really made me think about, the craft of teaching, what it means to be a good teacher. Pace, subject knowledge. If you lose people, the start and the end, and really, how to become a good teacher and how to build a good lesson. So really, this work is all about because I love teaching and also love picture books as well, and this work just sort of combines the two loves, really. I use picture books to teach about equality.
Thanks, Andrew. Can you tell us more about the No Outsiders program? Let's start talking about that program. What's it about?
Okay, so No Outsiders, you say in your school, the school ethos is there are no outsiders here. And what that means is that everyone is welcome. And it's a great term to use because it's an ethos that a 4-year-old can understand. It's so simple to understand because every child, unfortunately, understands what it means to be left out. And no child wants to be left out. So if you're saying in your school from reception onwards or nursery from onwards, there are no outsiders here because everyone is welcome, children understand that. And it's something that everyone taps into and everyone wants to see and everyone wants to believe. So in early years and reception year 1, it's literally No Outsiders is about, everyone is welcome. And if you go into any of the schools in my match and you say to children, what's No Outsiders mean? In reception, they'll say no one's left out, or they'll say we're all friends. Now, as you go through the school and get older, in Key Stage 2, we talk about, why might people be left out? And what are some of the reasons why some people are sometimes left out? What is bullying? What is discrimination? What is prejudice? What laws do we have in the UK to teach about, equality? And what is the Equality Act? And who does it involve? And how are we different in our school? So it starts by just being very, very simple with early years about we're all friends, we're different, but we are friends. And as you go through and move up, there's I think 42 lesson plans in the scheme, 7 in each year group, all based on a picture book. As you go through, you end up with a child by year 6. And I can remember, if I go into, again, a school on my mat and ask a year 6 child what No Outsiders mean, they would say something like, well, in our schools, no outsiders because we're all equal. We'd follow the Equality Act, which means you can have different skin, different race. It can be a different gender. You can have, have disability. You can be gay or lesbian or trans. You can have people from a different country. You are welcome here. No one is left out. So that's basically how it works.
Thank you, Andrea. It's a really detailed explanation. I think what you've modelled there is the age appropriateness, which I want to come back to in a second. But an ongoing question for us has been, at what age is it appropriate to start this work? And is it appropriate to be discussing this at early years? Like, just for the naysayers out there, like why should we be doing this from the get-go as children enter the education system?
Yes, because I want every child as they come to school to know they belong. And that's the bottom line. That's basically it. Every child needs to know that they are safe and they belong in my class and they belong in my school. So there was a lot of talk this time last year, or maybe 18 months ago, about age appropriateness of these lessons. But we need to remind people, what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is teaching children that we're different, but we're friends. We're not going into anything more than that, really. And in early years, a child needs to know that they fit in and they belong in my class, and that they have friends in my class, because we all look after each other. And we talk about different skin and and different families, and someone might have a mum and a dad, and someone might have just a mum or just a dad. Someone might live with their nan. Someone might be in foster care. Someone might have two mums or two dads. But whatever family you live in, you need to be reassured that your family is normal, your family is welcome in school, and actually it's great. Your family is great, So when we talk about age appropriateness, I would turn the question around and say, are you saying that that it's not okay to say to a 3-year-old girl that her two dads are a family? Should we say, if we talk about families in nursery, and we all do, and we should do, should we say to children, okay, right, if you've got a mum and a dad, you can talk about your family. But if you've got two mums, just don't mention your family, because it's not, we can't add on knowing about that. So just or just pretend you got a mum and a dad. So should we say that? Of course not. We want all children to know that their family is welcome in school. We're all different, but we're all here. There's no outsiders here.
So what I'm hearing, as an English teacher, I'm just thinking about the semantics of this. So it's not about not talking about it. It's not about not covering it. It's about the level of sophistication at which we do it, because you're modelling there of how you talk to a 3-year-old compared to how you talk to an 11-year-old. So it's what I'm seeing is this golden thread. And we use the appropriate language at every level to explain a complex concept. We don't step away from talking about these really important things. And I think that, do you think that's part of the debate, or part of the misunderstanding, that age appropriateness is about the complexity of the issues as opposed to simplifying it for the audience? Do you think, Andrew?
Yeah, that's it. Let me show you the book that I use to talk about two mums in reception, or so nursery reception. This is a board book. So you could ask, is this what should I read in year 6? Is this appropriate for year 6? So I'll read you this book, and I'm constantly being able to see it. And I need to. There we go. So this book says, "Mummy." It's called "Mummy, Mama, and Me." Mummy picks me up. Mama pours juice in my cup. Mummy gently combs my hair. Mama rocks me in her chair. Packs a yummy snack. Rides me on her back. Goes round and round. Slides to the ground. On all the places they do different things. They go on a slide. They go have a nap. They go in the tub. Scrub, scrub, scrub. The last page is, now I'm tucked in nice and tight. Mummy and Mama kiss me goodnight. So, age appropriateness, is that appropriate for a year 6 class? Or even a year 3 class? Actually, it's appropriate for a reception class, isn't it? And you read the story and you say, they do nice things, don't they? Does your mum do these things? Do you go to the park and do you, pack a yummy snack and go on the slide? Then we say, who's in your family? Who's in your family? Who's in your family? Who's in this family? And then we draw our families. And that's it. So it's just showing children that, let's talk about our families. We draw our families, but also making sure that children know that there are different families out there.
I wanna step back a bit and actually ask the question. To begin with, why are you doing this program, right? So we're talking about the details of how it's done, but why is it important? Is there a trend in modern life in Britain that in education that you've noticed, and then you decided to address the problem? So was there a problem to begin with. So why did it begin?
Well, because I started it because I did feel like an outsider when I was growing up in school. You know, as a young gay kid, you know, didn't know I was gay in primary school, but I definitely knew I was different, and I definitely, you know, didn't fit in with the other boys and found it very difficult. You know, school was very hard. You know, in the 80s and the 70s, and not just for me. You know, I mean, every gay person I speak to about this, you know, there's no one I know that says school was great. You know, it's very difficult because you just grow up and you don't fit in, and you know, I didn't feel like I you know, could relate to the other boys, and I tried really hard to suppress, you know, any sort of flamboyance or any kind of, you know, sort of gayness, if you like. You know, just tried really hard to fit in, you know, and just really, really difficult. And I would have just really liked to, at some point, for someone to have said, you know, in school, there's different people out there. There's different people, you know, and not all boys are like this, and not all girls are like this, you know. I was desperate in middle school to be in the rounders team, so I hated football. You know, I wasn't never going to be in a football team, but the rounders team was just girls only. And you know, I was actually quite good at rounders. I could really slug the ball, you know, and I just liked it, you know. But that was just for girls, you know. Boys had to be in the football team. Well, why? You know, it's that kind of thing, really. So I suppose, you know, that's where it all came from. Also have my sister is mixed race, and that also, you know, was a, you know, when I realised in my late teens, you know, we didn't really talk about it till we were both, you know, our late teens, about being mixed race in a white family and the impact on her. And you know, this stuff needs to be talked about, you know, and we never talked about it, and there's consequences for that as you grow up, you know. So you've really got to be talking about who you are with young children. You know, children have to know that it's they are okay. They know they're okay being themselves. They haven't got to pretend to be anybody else. They can be themselves, and they belong. And so that's really where this all comes from.
Thank you for sharing that personal narrative, because I think it is interesting what brings us all to this work and what shapes us, and it is usually our identity and our experience, or we've witnessed things that are just plain wrong, and we want to be part of the solution to addressing them. And I just wanted you to speak to the fact that sometimes people misconstrue that No Outsiders is about sexual orientation and inclusion of LGBTQI, but you're actually talking about inclusion on a universal level here, aren't you? Like all children, all humans being seen. How have you navigated perhaps that misunderstanding of what your campaign and what your program's about?
Yes, well, I didn't invent No Outsiders as the name. It actually came from a project that was an LGBT project 15 years ago, in 2006, and it was University of Sunderland, and I was involved in that project, and it was called No Outsiders. It was a 2-year research academic project about, you know, how to teach about sexuality in primary schools. And it was a great project, and I think there was 13 schools involved. And I think that was the first time that, to my knowledge, that anyone had talked about how to teach this in primary schools. But it was just single issue. That was just an LGBT project. And it was also very academic as well. But it's very good, and it gave me a good grounding. But that finished in 2008. And so for the next sort of 10 years, really, well, maybe not 10 years, maybe sort of 5 years, I sort of quite like the term No Outsiders, but I didn't really use it in my work. And then I wrote a resource. I did write a resource called Transgender Homophobia in Primary Schools, CHIPS for short, again, just single issue. And did that in a couple of schools. And in the second school where I did that, I did run into problems. I did run into problems with there was a bit of a parent backlash. This is 2010, 2011. And I realised that the reason why the parents were worried about this work is because of two things. First of all, because it said on the cover it was transgender homophobia, so that's what it was about. It was a single issue. That's what it was about. And you can't say it's not just about LGBT if it says it on the cover, because that's actually what it is. It is about LGBT. And secondly, I didn't engage with the parents in that resource. I didn't know how to engage with the parents. I sort of thought, well, I'm right. It's British law. We just need to do it. So I did do it, and I made no effort to engage your parents, to bring people on side. So when it sort of went wrong, I realised that I really had to do this differently. So I scrapped those lesson plans and I wrote a new resource, which was No Outsiders. Which is this one, No Outsiders. And the whole point of it was to take a completely different way to do this work. So number one, you don't just do about LGBT. LGBT is in there, but alongside race, religion, sex, as in gender, as in boys and girls, disability, all that kind of stuff. You don't have on Monday the disability lesson, on Tuesday the race lesson, and on Wednesday the gay lesson. It's not about that. In primary schools, you have equality lessons, PSHE lessons, where you talk about being black or white, or having brown skin, or having disability, or being gay or lesbian, or whatever, and you bring it all in. You teach it in context, so that no equality is more important than any other, but also then is less important either. So that's the main difference with No Outsiders. And the second difference is that I engage with parents, and I wrote a whole chapter in the book about how to engage with parents and why it's important. It's important to really undercut any kind of fears about what this work is, and to address that it's not about sex and it's not about LGBT. And that's the reason why I based it on picture books. I deliberately based it on 42 picture books, with the idea that I would have parent meetings and show all the books to all the parents. So there's no hidden agenda here. There's no secret lesson plans. I can literally show you the book that we're going to use. Here it is. What do you think? So that's really what how it started, and it was very successful in my school for a good 4 or 5 years.
Andrew, as a parent, I'm reassured that this program exists. I think that listening to you explain it. I mean, for me, what I'm hearing is that we're teaching young children to learn how to communicate different when they see something that's different, to communicate in a way that's positive. And I think that's a fantastic skill to teach. And how do you do that? And as early as that, teaching people to be inclusive, right? I mean, at the bottom line, to get it down to the actual skill that they learn, it's really learning about how to talk about things and how to make other people feel that they belong. What a fantastic thing to teach. So for me, that's what I'm hearing, and I think it's very positive. But I know that you've had some pushback, and I'm really curious to know, how have you handled the pushback? Can you talk a little bit about what people are afraid of and what is causing the pushback?
Yes, so No Outsiders worked fantastically in Potfield School where I was for 4 years. We started. I went there in April 2014. I sort of piloted No Outsiders there and had parent meetings in end of that year, early 2015. So we really started doing Outsiders properly after all the parent meetings in about sort of March 2015. And until December 2018, it just worked brilliantly. There was no pushback at all. We had Ofsted and we got outstanding, and No Outsiders was named as a key strength in the school. I started doing talks in other schools, about it, and just there was no hint or no sign that there would ever be any kind of pushback. And then suddenly there was really almost overnight, there was the rumours started spreading about RSE, basically, about the new government guidelines, relationship and sexual education, and rumours started spreading about what RSE was going to mean for primary schools. And all these rumours started spreading about how it's going to teach 4-year-olds about pornography, teach 4-year-olds about sex. I mean, just there was a YouTube videos that I've seen where people talking conferences about sexualizing young children, and no one mentions No Outsiders in these videos, but it's very clear that that's what they're talking about. They talk about picture books being used, and and it's this homosexual agenda. And the problem is that this all happened in the 2 weeks over Christmas, December 18. So the community around my school, school had no opportunity to come back and say, no, it's not like that. Come and talk to us. So for 2 weeks, it built up and built up. And then in January, it all started. And there were very big protests. And it's very difficult to remind people that, look, this isn't what it's about. And we've had open lessons for no outsiders for 2 years. And, it was devastating, actually. It was devastating to see this work being labelled as things that it really wasn't about that. So that happened, and then it was really all about, bringing the parents back on board, taking it slowly and restoring confidence in this inclusive work that we're doing, and that took a bit of time.
I'm thinking, Andrew, about the duality of this work and the work we do in schools with children as the next generation of adults in society. Because I've got a lot of hope and optimism that actually the kids really get it, and they can articulate it and they can be ambassadors for it. Like what I've seen our 11, 12-year-olds do when I was ahead was just staggering. But at the same time, like you say, it's the how we can challenge the ignorance of some parent, adult, community groups, because I've had to deal with some of that fallout as well. And I think like two things that have stood out to me on social media this weekend: 15,000 people have complained about Diversity's Black Lives Matter's dance performance on BGT. 15,000 people thought that was inappropriate. I find that staggering. And then I've also seen something go viral this morning where Sadiq Khan was walking down London Embankment, and he's been racially abused in public in daylight by grown white men. And I kind of think those two things to me are indicative of everything that's wrong in society at the moment. And I'm just interested at this 2018 historical point. Do we think that it was something to do with kind of like the political state of the country, the political state of the world, that we had like sort of like Brexit bubbling, Trump bubbling? Like, do we think that we've seen a shift perhaps and a bit of a regression in the progressive nature of this work? Do you want to speak to that historical context?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I would agree with you. And the protests at my school were led by people not in the parent community. There were people outside the parent community. And I think there wasn't an agenda there, and I think there was a reaction really to what people saw happening around the UK. There was a massive rise in hate crime. I think 17% over 2 years, the year of the protests. There's no doubt that people are feeling frightened, and people are almost retreating into their into groups because they're feeling insecure really about their place in the world, which is why this work is so important, because we've got to teach children that you do have a place in the world, you have a contribution to make, and you belong here. You belong here with me. We may have different skin and may have different religion, but we can have respect for each other, we can get along, and we can work together. And the narrative that we need to be giving at schools is very simple. It's that diversity is wonderful. That's the narrative. I can't control what children hear outside my school gates, but I absolutely can control what they hear inside the school gates. And what I need to hear inside the school gate is that diversity is great. Diversity is great, and we can get along. And isn't it the best thing about our school is that we have different skin. We have some children are from the Caribbean, some children are from Pakistan, some children are from the UK, some, but we all get along, and that's fantastic, isn't it? So that's what we need to be saying to our children.
I was going to say, Andrew, even more so that when things like that happen in the world, in the news, abuse, and that even more that the work of No Outsiders should be pushed, because at the end of the day, I think that people they'll have different beliefs, right? People have different beliefs. You can't get everyone to have the same beliefs, but how can you exist together in a productive, positive way, even though you don't believe the same things? So, and I think that's a fantastic message, and it's a great a program if you're teaching skills to young children on how to do that. And so I live in hope for what it would look like 20 years from now, these kids who have gone through the program and how they would behave as adults. So that's really comforting. So I actually want to know, what do you teach? I mean, do you have examples of like the main topics that you talk about in the program that teaches these skills to young children?
Yes, absolutely. I've actually got all the books here for reception and year one that I thought I could show you. And I think there's 14 I was going to say. I won't show you them all, but I'll show you the one that I've based my whole sort of career on, basically, is this one. So using reception, Red Rockets and Rainbow Jelly by Suheep and Nick Surratt. And because the message is perfect to introduce this work. And it's about Nick and Sue. This is Nick and this is Sue, and I'm just going to move back a bit so you can see. And basically, Nick likes apples, Sue likes pears, he likes yellow socks, she likes yellow ducks, orange hair, purple hair. They like different things on every page. Cars, dinosaurs, red dogs, aliens. But the last page says that Sue likes Nick and Nick likes Sue. So what's that teaching 4-year-olds? It's teaching 4-year-olds that you can like different things and you can still be friends. And then, so it's just a very simple lesson where you talk about it, and you ask children, what do you like? And we find someone that likes the same thing. Who likes tomatoes? You know, we find someone that likes the same things as you. Also find someone that likes a different thing to you, you know, and you celebrate that. It's great that you like gin and I like vodka. You know, that's great. And we can still be friends. And yeah, and you can do like a nice little, a picture, you know, where I like rockets, Sam likes cars, we're all friends, you know. This one, I love this one. This is by Emily Gravett, and again, it's a reception book, Blue Chameleon, and this is just perfect for this kind of work because it's about a chameleon who is lonely, and he tries to make friends. Now he thinks to make a friend, you have to look like the person you want to make friends with. You have to be the same color, and you have to look like them. So he keeps changing to be the same shape and same color as the person or as the thing that he wants to make friends with. And he keeps trying to make friends and it never works. And at the end, he realizes that you haven't got to change. You can just be yourself. That's just such a simple message, isn't it? So powerful for a 4-year-old. And I've seen there's a lovely display in my last screen, Parkville School actually, and it had a picture of 3 boys and a photo of them with arms on each other, and there's a speech bubble, and one of them says, "You don't have to look like your friends. I don't." And that's it, isn't it? That's it. That's the message. So all the books are like that. You know, and they're all books as well that you might, the schools might have already in their, you know, their regular books, you know, that schools might have already in their libraries. I want to make the books as accessible as possible. In year one, I use Elmer. I mean, everyone knows Elmer. You know, it's a perfect book. And the publisher actually contacted me last year to say thank you for using Elmer, which was great. But Elmer's perfect again because it's about an elephant that is different. You know, and in the story, he feels at one point that he should try to be the same because, you know, he stands out. He doesn't like standing out. So he covers himself with berries to try and make him grey, like all the other animals. At the end, he realizes actually that it's boring being the same and that it's okay to be different. But the best bit about the book is that the fact that at the end, so he doesn't feel, you know, like an outsider. They have an Elmer Day once a year where they all dress up and they're all different, you know, and to make him feel welcome. So how do you make people feel welcome? How do we make people feel welcome in our class? If Elmer was in our class, you know, what would we do to make Elmer feel welcome? So there's all these lovely resources, you know, and I read, you know, I love teaching these lessons, and I taught one last Thursday, in fact, in one of the classes in my maths, and just the responses from the children was just so heartwarming, and you know, and like you know, but you know, when you said about optimism, I'm full of optimism for the future. There's no question at all. You know, the children love this kind of work because it makes them feel safe. They can relate to it, and it makes them feel safe.
Andrew, this is a masterclass, and I'm so glad we've got you on this week, because we've got lots of teachers who have gone back to school, they're knackered, they're passionate about this work, and your signposting is really helpful. I'm just wondering if we could pop up some of the slides you sent us through. You could literally just talk us through which slides that Andrew sent, and just like you just narrate them to the audience, Andrew, because I think that you're really good at spotlighting and showcasing the simple way to actually broach these themes.
Okay, yeah. So if you want to go to the slide 4, which is can I join your club? Can we go to that one? Right. So this is a super little story. I usually use this in year 2. Can people still see me if I hold this book up? I'm not sure if people can still see. Well, so this book, Can I Join Your Club, is about it's about a duck who wants to join a club to make friends, and he has to join the lion club, and the lion says, well, can you roar like a lion? And he tries, and he goes, roar, quack, and he can't do it. The lion says, well, you can't join my club then. So he asks the snake, can I join your club? And the snake says, well, can you hiss? Can he go, sss? So he tries, and he goes, quack. And he goes, oh, no, and the snake says, well, you can't join my club then. And then he has to join the elephant club, and the elephant says, well, can you trumpet like an elephant? And he can't. And there's a lovely bit here halfway through where it says, Duck felt down, but he knew just what to do. So I'll take the kids up on this. This is all in the lesson plan. And I say, right, what do you think Duck's going to do? And they always say, oh, he's going to make his own club. And I say, oh, that's a good idea. So who will the club be for, do you think? And that's always an interesting bit, because some children say, it's just for ducks. And some children say, well, maybe I'll make it for all the animals. So we talk about that. And then we see what he does do. So he says, oh, look, he's made a club, duck club. And it says, but then the first person to come to the duck club is a tortoise. So the tortoise says, can I join your club? And Duck says, well, I need to ask you a question first. So I say to the kids, what's he going to ask, do you think? And they all say, well, he's going to ask, can you go quack? So, oh, let's see what he does ask. And he says, my question is, do you want to be in a club with me? And the tortoise says, yes, please. And Duck says, application approved. Fantastic. And so Duck joins his club, and they changes his sign. It's not called Duck Club. What's it called? It's called Our Club. Why? Why isn't it called Duck Club anymore? Because in Duck's Club, all the animals can join in. And sure enough, one by one, loads and loads of animals join in Our Club. And even the elephant and the snake and the lion as well. So what have the animals learned in that story? What have the elephant and the snake and the lion learned? They've learned that you don't have to look the same to be friends. You know, you can be in my club even if we're different. And can we have the slide up again, please? And I'll show you the work from that. This is from a year 2 class from last year. I can't remember what school it was actually, because schools tweet these things all the time, which is great for me, and I always retweet them to show work. So this was to welcome different people, our club, different skin, different families, different heights, different personalities, hair, religions, boys and girls. Lovely. So you know that's it. It's such a simple lesson for year 2, but a really, really clear message. You know, in our school, everyone is welcome. Everyone can join in.
What strikes me, Andrew, is that you're just such an epitome of a teacher with passion about children. And I think perhaps where the agenda's gone a bit awry is that teachers don't know how to do this work, but you're framing it in every teacher cares about teaching. Every teacher cares about the children they teach. Every teacher wants children to belong and feel safe and feel included and feel welcomed in their classroom. So you're weaving in the diversity, equity, inclusion as part of your practice. And it's the kind of the underpinning values of you as a teacher rather than kind of like being led with it. And I think perhaps that's where people get confused with. They need to make it really explicit. Whereas what I'm hearing is a values-led teacher who is integrating this in your work, and it's even more powerful because you are a man and a gay man working in early years, and I know there's a lack of representation in your sector when it comes to men. Like, is there a message you'd like to send to teachers who are listening about perhaps how you have simplified this work, or you've probably conceptualized it, and it is, you have thought it all through, but ultimately you've simplified it and you've made it accessible?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the priority when I wrote this book, this scheme, was to make it accessible. You know, I'm a a teacher of SEAL. So I know in the late 90s and the early noughties, you know, I had that huge big box of SEAL resources. And you know, I was a fan of SEAL. I liked its you know, I liked its aims and stuff. But you know, that big box, it was just like those of you who remember SEAL, you know, it was literally like a suitcase full of, you know, and it's very hard. It's like chewing cardboard. Some of it is really hard to get through, you know. And some lessons would just say like things like, "Oh, talk about being proud to the children." It's like, come on, you know, we need more. You know, give me something. So that's why, you know, to base this work on a book, you know, because I love there's so many fantastic picture books out there. They come out all the time, you know. There's lovely books that come out there. So to hang a lesson on a book is perfect for a teacher. For, you know, I don't know what I'm saying, for me, really. I mean, I wanted to have a lesson that I could easily start with a book. Pick up a book, and if the worst comes to the worst, you read a story and you talk about it. You know, the very anyone can do that. You know. But then you want more, don't you? It's how you use that book. You know, the books are great, but they're not. You know, don't just stick them in the library. You know, you need to have you can have a lesson on this book and talk about, you know, grammar and characterization and, you know, and setting and loads of stuff you can get. You know, but it all comes down to, you know, you hang it on the book basically. And the other thing that I like about this scheme is that because there are lesson plans, because, you know, I have some head just said to me, no, I don't want lesson plans, you know, I don't want it to be too prescriptive. But I think it's important actually to have lesson plans, because then you've got progression and you know what we're teaching in reception and you know what you're teaching in year 5. And you know you're not repeating yourself, and you know that, you know, and you know exactly what children are accessing throughout their whole, you know, school. You know, we don't teach this book in year 4, you know, we teach it in reception, you know. And there's other books in year 4 we don't teach in reception, you know, that you could read in reception, but I've chosen to put them into year 4 because I'm using them in a different way. So really it is all about, you know, yeah, making it accessible, but also making it enjoyable as well. You know, the lessons have got to be enjoyable. You know, the children have got to, I mean, the lessons go on Thursday. I use a book called Julian is a Mermaid. It's one of the new books in the scheme. And it's about a little boy who wants to be a mermaid, basically. It was a year 5 class. And the children just lapped it up, you know, and we talked about it. And you know, we did a little role play where someone was pretending to be a gran, and they put a shawl over their head, and we hot-spotted Gran, and we asked Gran questions about Julian and, you know, and how she felt. And, you know, and then the children wrote little responses to Julian about being proud of yourself, and it's okay if you want to be a mermaid, you know, and boys can become mermaids if they want to be, you know. And it's just wonderful, you know, just wonderful. It went so well. And you know, I want all teachers to be able to access that that joy that I got. I got joy from that lesson, you know. And I was with an NQT, and she was just, oh, I can't wait to teach this, you know. She was just saying, this is exactly what I wanted to see, you know, because these lessons are great, you know, they're enjoyable. It's a win-win really for a teacher and for the class.
I want to say, I want to read all those books. As an adult, I want to read those books. And I'm thinking, because it's great that we have this in the UK, but many parts of the world don't have any programs like this at all. I'm thinking, wouldn't it be great if we could just send the same books all over the world? I tell you what, I think adults could actually benefit from reading these books and just be reminded of what it's about. I want to ask, so my question is about what happens when they leave primary school. So my son, I think he's lucky. He went to a primary school that I think taught this ethos, and he came out of primary school really confident about who he was, even though he could recognize he was different, right? And then he went to secondary school, and it's like, he had a plan. Like, I think it was Mike Tyson who said, you have a plan until you get punched in the face, right? And then everything that you've learned in the world hits you, and everything in TV tells you you're not good enough. You know, is there any plan? Because in secondary school, is there a similar program? How is it sustained? What you teach at primary school, how is it sustained in the broader education?
Yeah,
plan?
so last week, or was it a week before, the first week back, I did a training session in an all-through school, so it's 4 to 18, and I had the afternoon with the secondary SLT and about how we can adapt this for the secondary phase, because I am very well. I get asked this quite a lot actually, because I'm a primary practitioner. And I'm not secondary trained, and this is a primary school resource. But what does happen when they go to secondary schools? And lots of secondary schools have been asking me, is there a secondary equivalent? And there isn't a secondary equivalent. That I haven't written one for secondary schools. However, there are lots of books that, and I'm researching. In fact, I spent my summer reading books like. I just happened to. This is literally. I happen to have them here. So books like this. So I work with Letterbox Library, and which is an independent bookstop in Birmingham. In London. They have a website, letterboxlibrary.com, and they basically recommend books for me. And they sent me 8 books like this, sort of novels to use in secondary schools by authors of a different race and with characters with LGBT and Black Lives Matters and all that kind of stuff, and just some amazing books. I mean, this book was wonderful. 8 Pieces of Silver by Patrice Lawrence, just fantastic. And there's so many. I finished this one last night actually. Troublemakers by Catherine Barter, absolutely super, about a little girl who's brought up by 2 dads and basically causes a lot of problems for them. It's just a super book. So there's those. It's about finding resources really, but also the other thing that secondary schools can do, and I know lots of secondary schools do, is use the assembly pictures. So assembly pictures. So the books are great for the scheme, but they're not enough because there's only 42. It's only 7 per year. So it's only 7 lessons in every year group. So that's one every half term maybe. So how can you keep that no outsiders ethos going? And you do it through assemblies. So on my website, which is at no-outsiders.com, I have an assembly picture blog, assembly picture plan blog, where each week I put up assembly pictures for people to use and plans as well. And the point of the assembly pictures is that I'm showing children that there is good around the world. There's communication around the world. It's not just us. It's everywhere. And I can show you some examples actually on that slide. Can you go to slide 6, please? We've got a zebra, a nappy, and a little boy as well. Here we go. So these are ones that I'd use in primary schools, but I'd use the middle one in secondary school. So as the children come in, you do one at a time. I do 1 per assembly. So the one on the left are the 2 zebras. I put it up and I say to people, to children, what do you see in this picture? And I say, it's 2 animals. What do you think they are? And what's happening? Where are they? And then you tell them the story. And the story is these are 2 zebras. Now the little baby zebra, does that look like its mum? It doesn't, does it? But it is a zebra. It just happens to be a bit different. It's got spots, and it does happen sometimes. It's very rare, but it does happen. So we talk about, how do you think the mummy zebra feels about her baby zebra? Do you think she feels like a bit embarrassed, or does she try to sort of, say, would you mind walking about, 10 paces behind me because I'm not seen with you? Does mummy ever say that? Of course not. How does mummy feel about her baby? Mummy feels proud. Even though her baby is different, mummy still loves her baby, because we're all different, aren't we? And all families look different as well. The one on the right to the little boy, I used that to start off the term last summer in September. It's a lovely story about a little boy called Blake in America, and his mum owns a t-shirt printing shop, and she said to him, first day at school, Blake, what do you want on your t-shirt? And she thought he'd want a rocket ship picture, but he chose to have these words instead. I will be your friend. So he taught the children about, so it's interesting, isn't it? Why did he choose to have that t-shirt? Why didn't he say, I'll be your friend if you're a boy, or I'll be your friend if you've got brown skin, or I'll be your friend if you've got black hair? Why didn't he say that? Because Blake doesn't care about any of that. What Blake cares about is just being a friend. Doesn't care who you are. Blake will be your friend. Blake would fit really well into our school, wouldn't he? Because that's what we say, isn't it? We don't care if I have different skin or different religion or boys or girls. We're friends with everybody. And the middle picture there, you could use this. I'd use this in a secondary school. So I'd say to them, so what's happening in this picture? What's this photo of? Where is that man? What is he doing? This is the photo that went viral last year. It's in the US. And there was a man that started a campaign to have nappy changing facilities in male bathrooms, because he said there weren't any. And he said, I spend my life crouching on a bathroom, on a dirty bathroom floor, because there's no nappy changing facilities. So we talk about that and say, well, why aren't there? Because what does that suggest about whose job is to change the nappy? So obviously it's just women that change nappy. Who does that exclude? He feels like an outsider in that picture. And the end of that story is that he did a campaign, and now, I think it was at Walmart. I could be wrong, but there's some big stores now put baby changing facilities in all their stores. How did that happen? Why have they done that? So the assembly pictures are great to talk about this kind of stuff in secondary schools. Can I just show one more slide, which is the slide 7? And because this is how I addressed the Black Lives Matters protest this year. So the one on the left is actually a friend of mine who put that on Facebook, and I asked her if she would if she allowed me to share it, and she did. So, and she put on Facebook, she put it's about Chadwick Boseman who died a couple of weeks ago, and she put this photo of her 2 sons, and she says it's something like, it's all about representation. She said, because representation is everything. The first time my boys went to a costume party at school with a superhero that they could relate to, and that's a really interesting discussion, isn't it? So why was Black Panther important for young Black kids? And when you think about a superhero, let's name some. How many superheroes are Black, or have brown skin? Why are they all white? And some people say, even today, some people say, oh, I don't see color. That's an interesting thing to say, isn't it? Because what does that mean? And do you think those boys see color? So all these things are interesting to talk about in a secondary school. And I would recommend that people have a look at the blog and the website. There's like 300 of these pictures, and they've all got lesson plans with them, and it's free to access.
Thank you, Andrew. And like, what I'm hearing is it's the power of storytelling. And as an English teacher, that really resonates with me. And we know that a picture tells a story. We know that our book choices are really powerful. And like you say, that representation in literature, the representation in film. And all we're asking people to do really is to create a bank of images, a reading list that explores different themes. And those reading lists and those pictures can go out in the newsletters to parents, so that we're actually sort of like infiltrating into the home space and this home conversation. And I've seen so much about Black Panther since Chadwick's death recently, and it has raised a lot of questions about representation in the media. So let's leverage what's happening in the world, I guess. I'm interested to come back to the idea or the kind of the story around you, Andrew, and your own personal resilience, because the work you do, it takes a lot of your passion, a lot of your energy. When you and Sarah and your team were all over the press and had that media storm for a long time, when you're navigating the kind of the backlash and the hate and the conflict, what do you draw on for your own personal resilience to keep yourself going in this work that you are committed to?
Well, the protests were absolutely dreadful. They were devastating, really, for me and for the team at the school as well. And and really, to an extent, was stuff that I might never sort of get over. Really, just awful time. But you have 2 choices: you sink or swim, don't you? And what choice do you have? I could have, I could have just left. I could have just left that school and just thought, I can't do this anymore. I chose to stay, and I can remember saying I did have the school paid for a counsellor point for a while, and he was really, really good. I remember saying to him, I can't leave. I feel like I have to carry on, because if I leave, what message does that send to people? It's not an option. And he said, well, it is an option, and you're choosing to stay, so own that. You are making a choice to stay, and that actually was really, really good. That quite affected me. About that is true, because actually I could leave. I could just go tomorrow. Maybe it's not worth it, but I'm choosing to stay. So I think it's all about support. The staff team at Park Ford were and are just fantastic. unwavering in their support, for me and for this equality work, and could not have carried on without their support. But also, I think my partner was fantastic and remains a very good leveler, and is very good at sort of compartmentalizing stuff. So we don't really talk about no outsiders at home at all. It's very separate. I mean, he's gone out now for a cup of coffee with a friend. He won't watch this, because it's not really interested. We don't really talk about it at home. We separate things out. And so it's important not to let things take over your life. It's not everything. There are other things about me, that I do that aren't about this, and it's about holding on to that kind of stuff.
Well, I'm really glad that you stayed, Andrew, and you didn't disappear, because what you do is really important. And at the end of the day, if your purpose is bigger than your fear, I think you can get over a lot of these things. And I'm glad that it's true for you. We want to ask you about the book. We have 10 minutes left. We haven't talked about the book yet. Can you tell us about the book?
Well, I've released a new version of No Outsiders this year. Everyone different, everyone welcome. And the reason why I did that is because there's new books coming out all the time. There's new picture books coming out all the time. And last one was written in 2014. And since then, there's been loads of amazing picture books coming out that I wanted to use. Now, on the No Outsiders website, I'm always adding new books and new plans. There's loads of lesson plans on there. If a new book comes out, I'll stick a plan up for it. But I wanted to update the scheme, really. So, but my favourite chapter in that book is there's a chapter called Other Voices, and it's got other head teachers, I think 4 head teachers from around the UK who use No Outsiders, who I just asked, would you write a couple of paragraphs about how it's worked in your school and what you've done. And that I think that's fascinating, really, to see that how people have made No Outsiders their own and where they've taken it. So, for example, there's head teachers in Cheshire who, someone started a public speaking competition, a yearly public speaking competition for Year 5 children, based on the term, have you ever felt like an outsider? Now that's wonderful, and supports obviously teaching as well, and it's incredibly successful. So it's all about schools just taking this ethos and just making it their own and making it successful.
And I'm just thinking, Andrew, if you've given people so many ideas today, where do you start for people who are feeling completely overwhelmed? We know that it's been a really tough 6 months for teachers and for schools. We know people are on their knees, and it's like the second week back already. And I think when fatigue kicks in, we go back to what we know. And I know the sector's feeling very overwhelmed. If you were going to give people perhaps 3 practical steps, where do you start, and where do you want to be by the end of the term, by the spring term? Could you just break it down perhaps for them?
Well, I think the priority now actually is how to address the whole COVID thing in schools and mental health and wellbeing, which No Outsiders absolutely fits into. But there's a second resource I've written, which is free, and I encourage people to go and look at it, and it's called Agents of Hope. And I use new picture books to teach mental health and wellbeing to children, to primary school children, after lockdown. And there's 40 lesson plans. People can get this from the Excelsior Mat website, and I'll give you the address maybe at the end. You can put it on your somewhere. But if people Google Excelsior Mat, and they can find the website and go to the PD section. And the resources just got, I think, 14 or 15 lesson plans based on new picture books, all about teaching mental health to children and teaching children about how to deal with worries. And it does fit into that size, because you're still, mental health, if you're struggling with mental health, then you're going to feel like an outsider. So it fits in, it's one of the two things, really. The second thing I do is I do a weekly newsletter, which again, I encourage people to sign up for. I do it as part of Excelsior Mat, Excelsior Mat PD newsletter. And it's the Agents of Hope newsletter. The whole point of Agents of Hope is saying that, as teachers, it's our job this term to be agents of hope for children. Children's worlds have shrunk. They may have lost their faith in adults, keeping them safe, and adults knowing what to do. The whole point of lockdown, you might have some children who have not seen other children or adults for 6 months. So we've got to be now the agents of hope for those children. whether we feel confident or not, the children are going to think that we're confident and that we know what we're doing. So in the newsletter that comes out every Friday, I do 5 assembly plans for the following week. And they're all assembly plans about giving hope for, the future and for our community. So the one I sent one out this Friday, and there's a lovely story. There's 5 stories in there. Probably my favourite story in there is of, and I searched the web for these kind of things, and I found a story about a woman who got married in 1980, and she had a wedding ring, and in 1983 she was playing catch in the garden, and her wedding ring flew off, and it flew into the shrubbery, and she never found it. And she and her husband obviously very upset, but they never found their wedding ring, and it became a joke in the family, a running joke. They said if someone goes in the garden, they'd say, "Oh, look out for the ring." So it's a running joke for 40 years. Now this year during lockdown, they had their garden landscaped, and guess what? The ring turned up. Now, people are saying that this story is a story of hope because the woman and her husband never forgot about the ring. They might never thought they were going to find it again, but they never forgot about it. They joked about it. Why they joke about something so sad? Because it's about resilience, they turned into something amusing and something funny. But actually, in the end, they did find it. You see, it was all right in the end. Save some black plans like this. And again, people need to sign up. Email me. I think my email's on the last page, and I add it to the mailing list. We've got to find ways in schools this term just to inspire our children with hope for the future. And that's what this work is all about. And I would say that once you've done that, then I'll say going to No Outsiders to carry it on, afterwards. But I think that the priority now is that mental health, well-being, agents of hope.
Andrew, thank you. That's so powerful. And I think everyone could get behind that as well, because it's a value that you'd hope that everyone actually holds dear and holds as a priority. Hope for the sector, hope for society, hope for schools, hope for the next generation, hope for the world at large. I think that's really, really symbolic, I think, of where we're at. And I think your reference there is absolutely where my thinking is. Like, I care so deeply about mental health and well-being and diversity, equity, and inclusion. They're not two separate things. We are talking about identity and belonging and psychological and emotional safety. Why can't we do the two in an intersectional way where we integrate it? And ultimately, by teaching through storytelling, it's how we then interweave and unpack those stories. Well, the time has gone so quickly today, and we will make sure we put all your references and all your slides on when we share. So, Isa, you gonna wrap up?
Yes, I was going to ask, actually, Andrew, any last words you want to say to our audience before we go?
I would say that what I'm really trying to do this next term is to get into as many schools as I can, obviously safely. So next week I'm in a school in Bristol. I'm going to do lessons all throughout the day in the hall, socially distanced. Kids will come to me for half an hour. I'll do a night-sized lesson, then they will go. I'll have a visor on. We'll keep the doors open. I'm working with schools now, to do this work successfully. But for me, it's about getting into as many schools as I can. So do look, go on the Excelsior website, and if you want training on, this kind of stuff, equality, diversity, and on teaching this, safely, then do get in touch.
Thank you, Andrew. Isa, how about you? What's your takeaway from this very rich conversation today?
Wow. Well, first of all, I want to say, Andrew, I'm very inspired by you. I am so inspired by your passion to really curate the material out there for us to use. I think that's really fantastic. I'm not in education, but I'm going to follow your newsletter only for, if I could share your work in my world, I will do that. So that's the first thing I want to say. And the other thing I was going to say is that how important your work is. I realize that you're teaching children how to talk about it, and you're teaching them how to be inclusive to others and teaching them skills on how they can also create space so that they can belong. So I think that's a wonderful thing that you do. And I'll end with this last story. This is how important it is. I'm reminded when you showed the pictures of your friends' children wearing the mask. I cannot tell you, but the very first time I saw 2 white boys wearing a Black Panther mask, I wanted to cry. I just couldn't believe it. And if your work does that to young children, God bless you, and I hope you get to do more of that. Sorry, Hannah, how about you?
I'm left grappling with what secondary schools could do better, Andrew. And I'm going to think about it, and I'm going to come back to you about how we can collaborate on this via diverse educators, because I think the systemic and structural makeup of a primary school perhaps enables this work to be embedded, and you can do whole phases, whole year groups. And I think when you get to secondary schools, the macro organisation of a secondary school is very different, as we know, and each secondary school delivers their curriculum in different ways. And how can we sort of like integrate our work together to get this out to more secondary schools, because they need it and we know they need it. So I think I'm left with more questions than I am normally, but I'm going to come back to you on that. So next week is our 12th and final webcast of the series, and we're delighted that UK youth are coming back to join us. So as you know, we had a UK youth panel a few weeks ago about Black Lives Matters and their Young and Black campaign, and we've invited them to come back. And we've got 3 guests. We've got Ikra Khan, Hamza Hussain and Kevin McKenna, who are young people from around the country who are advocating work specifically around gender and sex equality, because we're conscious that's one of the protected characteristics we haven't fully dived into this series. So please do join us at 10 o'clock next Sunday for our final show of this series, and then we'll let you know in the future when we're going to be back and what it's going to look like in the future. So thank you so much, Andrew. Isa, safe flight tomorrow, and we will see you all soon. Thank you.